Good morning. My name is Professor Carsten Maple from the University of Warwick and the Alan Turing Institute, and I'm delighted to speak to you today about the role of trust in unlocking the potential of Industry 4.0. So we all know that Industry 4.0 seems to promise a lot. It's been around for quite some time now, really bringing together the power of sensors and computation and communication technologies to really offer us this superb advancement in terms of productivity, of efficiency, and thereby driving down costs in our manufacturing. We can see that Industry 4.0 offers us this great opportunity for flexibility to change our manufacturing processes in potentially real time. Industry 4.0 also gives us a great opportunity to control manufacture and to ensure that we are better in terms of our compliance needs. We also have the opportunity to innovate much more rapidly and improve customer experience by giving bespoke products and services, and many more reasons why Industry 4.0 offers the opportunity for transformation. So to drive this opportunity, what we need to do is think about how we come together across supply chains and how data will help drive those efficiencies that we want to see. So what we can see is that it's really important that what we have is the Internet of Things, these sensors and actuators within our cities, within our homes, and within our factories. Combine that with the big data that's generated and advanced analytical power. So these advances in AI are really important. And they offer us this ability to enhance knowledge sharing and collaboration across supply chains, helping us to understand demand and better forecast demand and ensure that supply is timely. Something that's been really important lately, of course, in the pandemic is that resilience that we can offer. So to really offer this transformative power, what we need to see is massive changes in the connectivity of our factories. And there's a graphic here from 2019, so about 18 months ago, from ABI Research, which shows the predictions of what's felt to be the change in connectivity in digital factories. And we can see that there will be some increase, modest, in fixed line communications, but it's wireless connectivity that will really drive up this innovation. So we're going to be living in this increasingly connected world in terms of manufacturing. And that all seems fantastic. And I'm sure many companies are ready to exploit the technology. But what we have to be aware of is that some are still concerned about realizing that potential. If we look, the potential goes across factories, but also retail environments, work sites, across vehicles. And this means there's a lot of data being shared and a lot of access to data that's required to drive this innovation. We have to understand, though, that with all this connectivity, it doesn't just give a route into our systems for our partners and collaborators. It's also possible that criminals can attack. And we've seen that increasingly. So these are just some of the attacks over the last year or two. You know, so massive companies like Tesla and SpaceX have had members of their supply chain breach. So Visa is a parts manufacturer for both Tesla and SpaceX, and they've had data breaches. There's been aluminium makers that have had ransomware attacks. It's the biggest growth area at the moment, ransomware attacks, where people are finding out about what systems you have, determining when you need them most, and then disabling them and demanding some ransom. We've seen attacks on Renault Nissan, where nearly all production was halted at one stage. And this was, again, around 2017, so it's about 4 years ago now. We've seen that the manufacturing sector has been identified as the leading target of infrastructure cyber attacks. And we know about attacks such as the NotPetya and WannaCry attacks that have caused such problems for us in the past. So what we need to do is make sure we can trust the partners that have got access to our data. So what we need to be clear about is we need to manage who we share consensually our data with. Of course, we don't have much control over those that actually just maliciously attack our data, but by controlling who we share data with and understanding how their cyber cleanliness or hygiene is, it can help us manage our risk of data sharing. We need to think about how do we provide access to our facilities. If you think about a smart environment, maybe a manufacturing company working in the automotive sector, they may be supplying parts to an OEM, original equipment manufacturer, and to ensure efficiency and minimize costs in storing materials, may have demand signals coming from the manufacturer. Well, what they have to do is be clear about how do they give access to data coming into and going out of their systems. They have to understand how authentication is managed, because if I allow access to a company and their hygiene is weak, then it may be that other people, some malicious actors, could use their credentials to authenticate into my system. We need to be clear that not only do we interact with one layer of a supply chain, but there are tiers below that. So, for example, if you are a manufacturer of a vehicle, you may buy your seats from one tier one supplier, your immediate supply chain. But of course, that supplier to you will have their own suppliers of raw materials, and that is your tier two supply. And how do you try to now manage this kind of security risk? And how do you trust people down below in the supply chain, down to tier N? You have got no visibility, you may not understand who they are, but you certainly will have problems in identifying how cyber savvy or cyber conscious those organizations are. We need to think about what information do we share with others. We need to know that the information we're sharing is required by our supply chain. And that means we need to compartmentalize our information. We don't share all of the information we have, but we share some of the information. The real key to understanding whether we can really, truly, confidently collaborate with partners revolves around trust. We need to be able to trust our partners. And to be able to trust our partners, we need to be sure that they are trustworthy. And I make this distinction between trust and trustworthy for a specific reason. We know that people and organizations decide to trust another entity, a person, a machine, or an organization without due diligence. That happens. That is the way that we are. And it's unfortunate. But rather than just trusting blindly, what we're doing in work at the Alan Turing Institute and at the University of Warwick in WMG is to look at what does it mean to be trustworthy? What kind of claims can a system make or a person to convince you that they are worthy of your trust? We define trustworthiness along 6 different facets. They are security, privacy, ethics, resilience, robustness, and reliability. And I'll talk about those very briefly now and say why we think they're important. Beyond these 6 pillars, we need to have mechanisms that can verify how secure we are, how robust we are, and how reliable we are. So first of all, when we talk about security, we start with the standard CIA triad. That is ensuring that there is confidentiality in the data. So when it's being transmitted, it is largely encrypted, and nobody else that shouldn't have access to it can have access. We ensure that the information being shared has integrity, that data cannot be shared upon it, cannot be changed upon its journey between one entity and another. And finally, availability. Availability is particularly critical in these integral, rapid-moving, agile systems that we hope to realize for Industry 4.0. We need to make sure that if we are relying on data, that it is indeed available. For privacy, we have to ensure that the right information is shared with the right people. And this involves a technique largely known as data minimization. So think about, with the data, sharing data that is at the right level, be it at the edge of the network where the things are, or where the consolidation points are at the edge, so maybe base stations or some local servers, or at the cloud. So think where that's being shared. Think about the aggregate level of data. Do you need to share very finely grained data? And the reason for this is people do not understand, but if you don't apply privacy enhancing techniques, what you may be giving away is actual information about your infrastructure, what you're using and when you're using it. And that can be really harmful if compromised by somebody launching a ransomware attack. The ethics is also important, that what happens is when you are sharing data, that data that's being shared and the processing is fair, that you get what you deserve out of the relationship, that it's transparent, that people are using information in a way that they said, and they can explain how and why data is being used. It should be interpretable and auditable. There should be a chain, should something go wrong, where you can define where the errors occurred. We also need to ensure that the systems driving Industry 4.0 are robust. By this, what I mean is that if there are some changes in circumstance, or some data is missing or lost or compromised, that the system is able to perform in the way that we would expect. It's robust to those changing environments, data, or changing or missing elements. We should ensure that it's reliable. By reliability, what I mean is that it should offer the same performance, the same result, even if there are some slight changes to the input parameters. It should be consistent. It's another way that we can think of reliability. Finally, the most important element is that we need to move away from just securing our systems. We need to be confident that our systems are resilient. And by resilient, what I mean is we understand that the system will be compromised in some way. It will be attacked, that those threats will be realized, but we can detect those aberrations to our system, that we can recover, and our system is resilient and remains operational throughout and can eventually recover to full capacity. Those are the notions that we need to make sure to ensure that systems driving Industry 4.0 are trustworthy and that they are worthy of us investing our time and resources to realize those significant benefits that we can. So to find out more about what we're doing at the University of Warwick in WMG or at the Alan Turing Institute, please email me at cm@warwick.ac.uk or follow me on Twitter @cmaple. Thank you.